All right, so 2024 is right around the end of its cycle. We're currently in November at the time I'm making this video. And in this modern day and age, we're looking at so many improvements and so much new technology that comes around just about every other month or every other week. Like right now, if you take a look at all the devices that are available to us, especially when it comes to smartphones on the market, we have a multitude of devices. It's basically an endless list. We have flipping phones, we've had multiple iterations of those, we have folding phones, and now basically a lot of the big companies are starting to implement folding phones. We recently just had our very first tri-screen folding phone. A little bit crazy, a little absurd in my personal opinion, but I mean it's kind of wild to see where all of this is going. I mean, you know, that phone is coming from China. Now I think this is probably the best time in the video to introduce today's topic. Today we're going to be talking about the Google Pixel 9 Pro Fold. This is their second iteration of the Fold, and this is their second attempt at making a foldable phone. And I will be honest, guys, before we get into anything, you're probably wondering, okay, and what am I in for this video? We're going to talk about the whole process of switching from a normal smartphone to this one, and more specifically talking about my previous experiences with folding phones and how this one compares to that. Now, before we get into any of the details and any of the specifics of this phone and all of the things that I want to say about it, I do want to point out this is by far my favorite folding phone of all time. It's just really good. I want to say it's perfect. I want to use that word, but then using perfect means that it would basically be flawless. It would basically mean that there is nothing they can improve on. And being that I don't actually work at Google, nor do I actually make smartphones for a living, I only review them, I wouldn't exactly know how to perfect the formula for the Pixel 9 Pro Fold. But I do have to say it's probably the closest we're going to get right now at this time and point to a perfect folding phone. So Pixel 9 Pro Fold. Now it's been just a little bit over like 2 months that the phone has been out. You know, a lot of people had their hands on it. You know, we've seen reviewers, we've seen a lot of talks about this on the internet, and I think it's still kind of like in the works. I mean, folding phones are not necessarily the most popular, nor are they the most convenient, and a lot of people have kind of like, you know, they're iffy about making the switch. They don't really know what to expect. You know, like I'm buying a phone, it basically looks like a tablet. So what am I getting into? What's the whole gist of this here? Now, to better explain all of this, we have to talk about the actual concept of the folding phone, right? We have to actually talk about what's the experience of having a folding phone. Now, for the most part, I really do think that one of the things that Google does really, really well with this phone is that it actually is a smartphone and then a folding phone. It's not just a phone that's focused on the folding side of things, and then the front screen is just kind of, you know, it's there, it's smaller, it's tighter, it's just not as nice. Google really focused on making a phone that was good on both sides, right? So when you're using it in the front like a normal phone, it has a real functional size screen. It's wider like it's supposed to be, in contrast to maybe the Z Fold 6. The one on the Samsung is very thin and very long. It just doesn't really feel like a front screen, but this one on the Pixel feels just right. You know, it's nice. It has just enough space. I want to use this as a regular phone all the time, and it just works properly. Not that the Z Fold didn't work, but you know, the dimensions and these little things actually do make a difference. Because let's be honest, for the most part, on a day-to-day situation, for example, let's get a really specific example here. Say you're in the car and you want to switch your songs really quickly. You want to have a front screen that's fully operational, fully functional. If you're in a situation where you just want to look up at your phone, quick notification, want to send a quick text, you're not going to spend the time to actually open the phone, start typing on the big screen, close the phone and everything. So you do want to have a functional front screen. It's so important, and this is something Google has done really well with this specific phone. So now with that being said, let's switch over a little bit to the form factor of the phone. Being that it is a folding phone, I think one of the things that Google has done really well this time around with this one is the fact that it overall has a very thin body, so it does not feel thick or it does not feel heavy in any shape or form. I have some side-by-side shots with like a regular phone, but you know, next to a regular smartphone, it's really not all that thick. It really looks and feels just about the same. Sure, it has that middle crease, and sure, you know that there's two screens that are stuck to each other in the middle when it's folded, and if you add the fact that it has a slightly wider, slightly more normal screen at the front, it really does feel just like a regular smartphone when it's folded. And when you open it, well, you can access to the bigger full-size screen. And I really do have to say that I am impressed with the shape and size of this folding phone. Not only does it not feel too heavy, sure, it has a little bit more heft, a little bit more weight to it without a case, because you are rocking a mini phablet in your pocket. You know, I mean, somehow you gotta have some sort of compromise. But you know, if you look at it from side to side, you know, the overall thickness of the phone is just enough for a USB-C port, which is actually quite impressive. If you open this phone up, you are greeted with a very, very thin phone. So now let's talk about the phone in a tablet form. Obviously, this is kind of like the bread and butter of this. It's the whole point to have an extended screen, to have a bigger kind of like operating system, and it's actually really nice. I really do have to point out that I am a big fan of what Google has been doing. I really love their latest smartphones, the Pixel 9 Pro XL, this one. It all starts to tie in really well. They're creating this kind of new flow, new ecosystem in all of these devices, and it's really nice, man. They just work really well. And to be honest, I think when in making the switch, I've been an Apple kind of like user for the longest of time. Most of my devices are Apple just because it's kind of easy to interact with, and they've had some really good performance in the last few years with the M chips. But kind of making that shift from like an Apple device to an Android, I definitely do think that right now, if you are a bit on the fence, if you were thinking about making a switch, then Google is definitely the way to go. Their software is easy to interact with, it's very functional, it's super fast, and their devices actually kind of do feel like Apple products nowadays. So you're not getting too much of a contrast. You're getting kind of like a subtle adaptation, and it's really nice. It's really cool to get into an Android. Obviously, you have a lot more freedom and a lot more flexibility when it comes to these devices. But in the last few months, I've been actually kind of diving into more of these specific phones. I've had the Z Fold 6, and that was a really nice experience. I enjoyed that. But this, in contrast to that, it just feels a little bit better. I do like the overall body of it. So you have the rounded edges. I kind of like that a little bit. It feels a little bit more natural. It feels a little bit more like my personal device, and I do like that. Something that I love about these devices is that little hole punch cutout in the front for the camera. Now they have it on the big size of the screen, and they have it also on the front side of the screen when it's folded. It's great, it's functional. I do like to have more of screen. I'm not necessarily a fan of the pill shape that Apple has on their smartphones right now. I really hope that in the next generations they're gonna kind of like shrink that down or make it smaller, or kind of move away from that design. The hole punch cutout is just a lot better. Sure, you're sacrificing a bit of front facing, or like just the overall small camera. You're sacrificing a bit of quality. Now I guess when you're switching from a regular smartphone to like a folding phone, your main question would be like, okay, well, I switched, but what's the dynamic of having a folding phone? So this one does its job really well. I mean, like I said, it has a nice front facing screen, so when it's folded, it feels like a normal smartphone. But the majority of the time, you want to open it and you want to use the extended screen size. You want to use that like mini phablet form factor, and it's great. I mean, for the things that I personally use, so for example, content creation and content consumption. For example, if I'm watching some YouTube videos, it's just great. It just feels like a little small tablet. It's very light, so I'll just lay back on maybe the couch or on my chair, and I'll watch a video or consume some content that way. It just really nice. It's a lot easier to operate than a tablet. Like for example, if I put it in comparison to my iPad Air, sure, the screen sizes are relatively different. This is a smartphone at the end of the day, but that experience is relatively the same, and it's cool. It's just really nice. I actually really enjoy just sitting down, watching a video, opening it, and having the tablet form factor. Shifting to something a little bit more different, maybe more productivity work. For example, if I'm tackling emails, is very easy. I have a bigger form factor, bigger screen. I can look at more information at once. I scroll with one finger. I have like a kind of like a full-size keyboard that's split across the screen. It just allows me to interact with applications in that sense, and just in a different kind of form. But with all that being said, YouTube and Gmail and all these things are not so demanding platforms. They're not so demanding applications. So in terms of performance, you really are getting the best of the best. You don't expect anything less. It's a flagship phone. This thing is nowhere near cheap. It's kind of a little bit expensive in some areas. I mean, it would definitely depends on what kind of budget you have and what you're in the market for, but this does run close to $3,000 here in Canada. It is by no means an affordable phone, but with that price point, you really do want to get the best of the best. So in terms of performance, you don't have to worry about any of that. It just kind of crushes anything it touches. So whether that's a bit of Lightroom, Photoshop, you can even do some like light video editing, for example, CapCut. It's easy. You can import some of the clips. It's just overall it's just not a problem. You will get anything done. So if you want to get this device to kind of have a mobile workstation and just get to work on a lot of the things that you would do. So for example, maybe you're a content creator, or maybe you're a videographer, a photographer, and you want to work on these things on the go, this could be the perfect device for you in that case. Switching our attention a little bit towards battery life. Battery life is something that's just, it's very personal, I think, in some ways, and the overall performance of the phone is a thing. It's a numbers thing. It's in regards to like how much power does the battery have and how much can it last. But it also comes down to your usage, right? If you're scrolling all the time, all day long, and you're always opening the phone and you're always interacting and you're leaving all of your apps open, then naturally you can expect your battery life to go down quicker. But if you're kind of like the average person and you're a bit of scrolling here and there, a bit of text messages here and there on WhatsApp and all of these things, and then you will take maybe the occasional picture throughout the day. You see something on the street. In that regard, it really does hold up just well. Now, keep in mind, you do need to charge the phone at the end of the day. I wouldn't say, expect that this is going to last you 3 days in a row. It won't. It has a powerful chip inside to run two screens when it's opened, and you have a bigger screen, so it needs more brightness, it needs more screen on time, and all of these things. So the battery does try to compensate. And also, remember, it is a very thin smartphone. So folded, it feels just like a regular phone, and opened, it is a very thin tablet. So all of these things, they do have to kind of work in some harmony, and there are some compromises here and there. So the battery life is not stellar, but it is also very surprising for what it's worth, right? I mean, a lot of the times we'd see these devices and you would expect, oh, this thing is going to last me probably like 3 hours, but it doesn't. It kind of gets you throughout the whole day, and it's just fine. It's okay. At the end of the day, charge your phone. Battery life is just fine. It's good. It works. I honestly prefer having a more powerful phone that I have to recharge at the end of every day than having something that lasts a little bit longer, but I'm always kind of like not really enjoying the performance. I'm trying to do something, I'm working on a task, it's just kind of slow. Now, with all of these things being said and being pointed out, I think there's one more thing that we got to talk about, and that's the camera system. So if you'll shift your attention to the camera on the actual phone, it has a pretty unique design. It's kind of like that classic design. It's similar to the overall kind of concept that they have on the Pixel 9 Pro XL. However, this time, obviously, I don't think it was a smart idea for them to put a whole visor on this. Therefore, that's why they went for this kind of like smaller square island. So in terms of camera quality, you will be getting some pretty good pictures overall. I mean, for the most part, what's good about Google devices is that a lot of times you do have, especially when it comes to camera side of things, there's a lot of post-image processing. So it'll take the picture and then it'll analyze what's going on, and then it'll process the picture in kind of a different way. And a lot of times you will see that you'll take a picture, you won't be so impressed at first, but then when it processes and renders the picture and it kind of puts all the pieces together, you get a nicer overall final product. And that's something that I've seen across Google devices for the better part of their last few devices. But in terms of camera quality, I mean, you're really not gonna get the absolute peak, the absolute most stellar performance. It's definitely up there in the like 7, 8 out of 10 in terms of points that it gets for camera quality. It's pretty good. One thing that actually kind of impressed me with the cameras on this specific phone is that it has the actual 5x optical zoom. It's not all that good. It doesn't take the best pictures. It definitely does suffer, especially in low light. I mean, that's something that, a lot of smartphones struggle with either way, but this one specifically, if you're gonna go for the 5x optical zoom, try to use that on specific cases. So for example, if you're outside, you want to take a picture of maybe like a bird or a tree or something in that nature, then I would use that feature. But other than that, when you're indoors or when you're like in kind of like just abstract situations, I would stay away from that. Definitely stick to the ×1, ×2. Those are kind of like your safe bet. And keep in mind, I mean, the phone is already pretty thin as it is, so it's kind of hard for them to incorporate the biggest, most badass cameras when they already have to think about so many other components: performance, battery life, overall screen brightness, and all of these things. So camera overall, it's good. It'll get the job done. You'll be able to take some nice pictures. Video quality also is relatively decent. Now, given the fact that we've covered basically kind of the main topics of the Pixel 9 Pro Fold, I think that now it comes down to basically the overall experience of switching from like a regular smartphone to a fold phone. I will have to say that in the process of switching to this one specifically, I think this is now one of the better times and points for me to give my opinion on this. The last switch I've done is to the Z Fold 6. And it just, like I said, there was some things I didn't necessarily like about the Z Fold 6. The front screen wasn't exactly to my liking. It just felt like it was too narrow. I really wanted something a little bit wider, which this Pixel 9 Pro Fold does really well. This front screen is just, it's nice. It's perfect. I do think it's perfect. It could have smaller bezels, but again, here I'm just nitpicking. For the most part, this actual device in my hand is perfectly fine. It works really, really well. Now, another thing that kind of took some time for me to adjust when I was with the Z Fold 6 is that it was basically one of my first real-time switching over to a foldable phone. Prior to that, I had the Galaxy Z Fold 5, and I only had it for a few weeks, and I kind of used it here and there. I gave my review on it, but I never fully switched to that. So switching to the Z Fold 6 was my first actual switch to a foldable phone. Now, from that, I kind of started getting into the mix of how a folding phone works, try to find out how can I maximize having a bigger form factor, a bigger screen. And now that I've been able to experience that once, bringing all of that to this Pixel 9 Pro Fold is very nice. It's just been able to kind of like it's just maintained that fluidity. It's been allowing me to kind of keep the progress and add more progress onto this one. Now with this one, given the fact that it has that more narrow, more like wide front screen, it has a just overall nicer shape. I kind of like the interface on this one a little bit better. I just find myself really enjoying this foldable phone, and it just feels like a regular smartphone. You know, it just feels like I have two in one. I feel like I'm winning across the board with this one. You know, you got powerful components, you got good camera system that just, you know, delivers just about right, good pictures, you got high performance, a nice vibrant screen, you got, you know, I didn't really cover this, but like the speakers are not that great. Don't expect too much. It's a folding phone. It's still in the works. It's only their second generation, and it's a very thin device. So the speakers will not blow anything out of the water. Actually, a lot of times I watch my videos on full volume and I still find it's a little bit kind of low. But for the most part, the Switch has been really fun. Also, this does come with Gemini. Really, really nice. I just love this like kind of new wave of AI assistant on the smartphones. It's really good. A lot of times I use Gemini just to kind of like find inspiration, kind of find things that I want to use in my videos. But with all that being said, the overall Switch has been very fun. I'm still going to keep using this phone for the better part of, you know, the next few weeks and trying to see how my experience kind of evolves with that. I might do an update. I actually might, if you guys are interested in that, let me know. I will work on that, give you guys kind of like a full rundown, bigger update long down the line. Let me know what you think about this new Pixel 9 Pro Fold. Love it. I think it's great. It's still not my favorite. It's my favorite folding phone, but it's still not my favorite smartphone out there. With that said, I would love to know what you guys think about this. Would you make the switch? Has this video helped you getting a better understanding or just like a new perspective on the whole topic itself? With that said, I'll catch you on the next one. Wish you the best of luck in everything you do, and I'll see you on the next one. Deuces.